We wanted to introduce what we're trying to do here, which is educate the general public on all things olive oil. And I guess in order to make ourselves effective, we first have to tell people why they should listen to us.
Yes.
And they should listen to us mainly because they should listen to you. So if you could go into a little bit of your involvement in the olive oil world and all that you've done.
I mean, essentially the most important thing is that I'm a judge in olive oil competitions. I've been judging olive oil. I started judging olive oil in Italy in 2004, more than 20 years. And then I started judging in Olive Japan in 2014 and a London competition, which then split and became this one, Berlin Global. And I judged in a Greek competition, and last year I was judging in a competition in Tunisia. And so that means I taste a lot of oils. I'm with people who know about olive oil. Every time I go to a competition, it's so cool because everyone is very generous with their knowledge. And so that way, every year we teach each other more things.
And even on the days that you're not off judging in competition, olive oil is still a very big part of your daily life, right?
Yeah, I mean, for some of my friends and family members, it can be kind of, can we talk about something else? I mean, I can talk about other stuff, but I'm a bit obsessed. And sometimes I have so much oil in my house that it is almost overwhelming. I mean, when I lived in Italy, I used to have something like 200 oils in my house at a time, which was great because it meant I could start playing with them and sharing them with foods and learning about them.
Yeah, it's not an inconsiderable amount of olive oil.
Exactly.
What is extra virgin olive oil? Why is it extra virgin? What is virgin olive oil? Can you get into those specifics? And then there's certain blends out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will explain that. I'm a little bit worried about this fear of the word blend, because there are some people who are really into single varieties and believe that you shouldn't put together two different varieties. And if you think about wine, and I always think making parallels with wine is really good, blending in olive oil can be fantastic. And not even with a single variety. So for example, you pick olives early in the season and they're very green, and the oils at the beginning of the season will be almost too green. But then when you blend that with something picked later, you can make something more balanced.
Of the same variety.
The same variety, make it more balanced.
And would that technically be a blend?
No, you wouldn't call it a blend, you know.
But
that's the people are worried about this word blend. Because, for example, I mean, in the United States, it is good that on the back of the bottle it says produce of Tunisia, Spain, Greece, and Italy. That is a blend of different stuff. I shouldn't use bad words, but probably crap. But anyhow, I just wanted to clear up the thing about blend is also, there's another thing to think about. Just like with wines, there are some wines or some olives that are very intense, that can blend beautifully with something that's softer and less interesting, but together they make a great blend. I've been doing this for many years, and people, even if I've explained it quite a few times, they don't always get it immediately. It is the thing is, it's an absurd phrase, extra virgin, you know, either you are or you aren't. And I'm really pleased now that in our cafe where we do our tastings, we have some virgin oil that people can smell and identify immediately the difference between virgin and extra virgin in that particular case. Extra virgin olive oil is olive oil without defect, which sounds like it's personal opinion, but we're trained as tasters to decide whether an olive oil has a defect or not. And I think a good example is music to explain what this exactly means. So for example, if I were playing the guitar now and you hated the way I play, you hated the tune I was playing, that would be your personal opinion. But if it were out of tune, that is an objective fact. And we're trained to tell whether the olive oil is out of tune or not. And basically what happens is that we pick up a cup and we smell it, and nearly always from the smell we can tell if it's dirty, fermented, if there's a problem, if it's defected. If it's defected, it is not extra virgin. Having said that, another thing that people also say to me is, well, let's look at the chemistry. That tells us whether it's extra virgin or not. And this is, I'm afraid, completely untrue. And to demonstrate this, a great scientist and olive oil taster from Spain was with me in Japan, and he gave us an oil. He said, don't smell it, don't taste it. I'm going to show you in my PowerPoint the chemistry of this olive oil. And it looked great. All the acidity, all the levels were good. So he said, chemically, this is extra virgin. And then we picked up the oil and we smelt it. And you could see 60 people in the room grimacing because it didn't smell too good. And then we tasted it and it tasted terrible. So he said, is this extra virgin? No, it has a clear defect. This is not extra virgin. Chemically, it looks as if it's okay. Didn't taste very good, so it's not extra virgin.
But you did mention the word acidity, and are there some kind of...
There are so many words that we use when we talk about olive oil that cause huge confusion. And acidity is one of them. And people all over the Mediterranean, particularly older people, believe that they can taste the acidity in olive oil. The acidity that we are talking about are the levels of free fatty acids, which we cannot taste. So when I say people are confused about it in the Mediterranean, even the people who've been making oil for years and years, they've heard this word acid and they think that the bitter pungent oils, which are the ones that we love, are acid, because they don't know, they can't taste this acidity that we're talking about. The free fatty acids develop in olive oil because the olives have fermented before they're made into oil. But I repeat for the third or possibly fourth time, we cannot taste that acidity.
So there is acidity, and then there's this other thing that we can taste, which maybe would bitterness be a better adjective for that? The pungency of it, the thing that we refer to when we say an olive oil is acidic.
I mean, you should not say that olive oil is acidic.
The thing we used to say, as it were.
Exactly, from smell and taste, you shouldn't really say that. Having said that, there are some oils where you smell the smell of, I mean, in this case, these tomatoes are beautiful and fresh. But imagine you've left some apples in a bowl on the table and you've been away for a couple of weeks and you come back and there's this kind of sour smell. That kind of sourness we do talk about, but we try not to use the word acid because there's a big confusion. Bitterness and pungency, and I don't want to be patronizing, but bitterness we feel on the tongue, like when we have IPA or tea or coffee, is very common in a lot of oils, and some of the very best oils in the world have very high levels of bitterness. And pungency, we have to have some kind of pungency, some pepperiness in the oil. If it's not there, it's not extra virgin because it's been refined, which is another story. So we want bitterness and pungency. In some varieties, the bitterness is almost non-existent, but we have to have some pepperiness.
And then this pepperiness and this pungency, is it fair to use those two interchangeably?
No. It is really important to distinguish between the bitterness on the tongue and the pepperiness that you get in your mouth, the back of your throat, sometimes even your lips. And some olive oils have this extraordinary kind of wasabi horseradish effect, so that when you breathe out, it kind of tingles in your nose.
And but when you use the word pungency, what are you referring to there?
Well, I'm avoiding the word spicy because it annoys me, because I love spices and how many spices are there. So when us Brits use the word spicy because we realize that hot is ambiguous, it's annoying. So I say peppery, maybe peppery. I talk about burning the back of your throat. The other thing is that the language sometimes can be off-putting. We don't want to put people off. So pungency is something that we talk about, and I think pepperiness is good too.
A lot has been made of the antioxidants in olive oil. Can you elaborate a little bit on whether the polyphenols, which are, correct me if I'm wrong, a type of antioxidant found in oil, is that something you can taste and or detect in the oils? I
mean, there is a tendency now, it's kind of become trendy to pick up a cup of oil and taste it and say, oh, taste the polyphenols. Sometimes bitterness and polyphenols are kind of equivalent, but it's not precisely so. But if an oil were very bitter and pungent, then you would know that almost definitely that the polyphenol levels would be high.
So there's a strong correlation there.
There is quite a strong correlation. What worries me is being obsessed with polyphenols, and there are some scientists who are, I would actually call them cranks, who are using some very strange methods to measure the levels of polyphenols, and are claiming that oils which I've had, which were disgusting, had very high levels of polyphenols, which measured with the classic scientific method have much lower levels. And another thing that worries me is that it's possible to make very bland, very boring, possibly not even extra virgin oil, and then add omega-3, all sorts of polyphenols and other things to make it healthy, but the olive oil itself is not actually an enjoyable oil and not a natural one. Some people tend to be a little bit technical and scientific when they talk about these things. In the end, as I said before, we can detect whether an olive oil is extra virgin or not, because in the front of our face we have a laboratory which can tell us from smell and taste.
So by expert consensus, you reach conclusion that this thing is or is not, or borderline is.
Yes, the borderline ones, that's when you need the experts. Just like in music, I mean, if a guitar is slightly out of tune, not everyone knows. So you need people who have developed their sensibility to understand whether an olive oil is extra virgin or not, whether it has a defect or not. And we have a panel. We won't have just one person saying this is defected or this isn't. So we have 4 or 5 people will decide, and it's a kind of democratic process to some extent.
You know, as far as entry points go, taste and smell are probably the biggest reason why people would want to get into something like this and experiment with it.
I think very quickly, if you taste olive oils just a few times, you would develop the ability to say this is fresh and this is smelly, dirty, fermented.
I've had the privilege of doing a few of these tastings with you now, and I am amazed at the speed with which that sort of recognition came about, even though there's, you know, decades of refinement ahead of me. But some of, like, this one basic thing that you're describing, it's...
If your nose is working, you really get the difference between a fresh, good, extra virgin and one that isn't. I mean, it's like crunchy apple and one that's sort of brown and has been sitting there for days. Everyone gets the difference. Now, if your nose doesn't work so well, then it's more difficult. But at that stage, I think what's important to remember that in the end, whether it is extra virgin or not, the most important thing is, do you like it or not? Right.
Which brings up, I think, an important question, at least from my perspective, is can an oil be intentionally defective and done in a way that's good?
Well, I mentioned the virgin.
Right.
I have, I think, 6 bottles of virgin olive oil, which I use for, as it were, teaching purposes. And this is oil that is made in the south of France, where they pick the olives late in the season when they're black, and then they ferment them for 5 days in containers where there's no oxygen. And they make the oil smell and taste of tapenade, of olive paste, which is a pleasant flavour, and some people love that. But if you have that smell of tapenade, of olive paste in olive oil, it is defected, and the defect we call fusty. If it has that smell, it is not extra virgin. And the producers in France who make this very interesting oil call it vierge, virgin, because they know it's not extra virgin because it has a defect. So the defect, in this case, it's not necessarily bad, but it is defined by international law to be what it is, which is the smell of olive paste, and therefore it's not extra virgin. And that's why they call it virgin.
That's yet another sort of offshoot of where you could take this as a producer, but also as a taster. You could look for certain interesting defects, as it were.
Yes, and it's very important when you're talking about that oil, when I talk to the French producers who make them, to understand what they do with them. Personally, I don't particularly like it because I've been trained to detect whether it's fusty or not, and it's like, oh God, that's a defect. The people who make those oils and the people in that area, they love it on mushrooms and truffles and on eggplant. So that's their personal taste, and they love that use, and that's fine. And having said that, sometimes when I had my 200 oils in my house, I would have an oil which I wrote some notes about it and I wasn't particularly enthusiastic. And then I would think, let's try it on this, and think, you know, it wasn't a great oil out of the cup, but with that food it worked, and it wasn't spectacular, but it wasn't bad.
I've had the oil that you are talking about, the olive tapenade one.
Right.
Personally, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, no, a lot of people love it, and that's great, and they have a market, and I can tell you it's not cheap, because it's quite a process to make it.
So another thing that a bottle or a tin will usually say is that it's cold pressed. Can you get into that? I see the smile on your face. Can you get into it a little bit?
And it's more of these words that are kind of meaningless or at least confusing. You can probably tell today here in Spain that it's not very cold. It's probably above 27 degrees at the moment. Cold extracted, and we're talking centigrade, means that you cannot take the temperature above 27 degrees centigrade during the process, which is 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not cold. Look at my face. It's not cold at the moment. But we call it cold extracted, and I prefer to say extracted rather than pressed, and I will explain why. Some people take the temperatures up much higher than that because they want to make more oil more quickly. Mm-hmm. They want to squeeze every last drop out of the paste, and the temperature helps. But you kill it. The freshness that you get in the good oils that we've got here on this table disappears. You cook out the freshness, and you end up having an oil that smells like popcorn, like a cooked oil, or a British pub. So this word cold, it doesn't actually mean cold, but it means not so hot. But that wouldn't be great marketing. Put that on a bottle, people wouldn't.
Lukewarm pressed.
Yeah, right, or not so hot. So that is to clear that up. And then the word press. Basically, almost nobody now uses presses. Presses are essentially dirty. I mean, they use mats to, they spread the paste on these mats, pile them up and squish out the oil and the water. Those mats are like doormats. And in some modern mills now, people will have them literally in front of the door to the mill as doormats, which is where they should be. They shouldn't be in the mill anymore. So now we use stainless steel and centrifuges and crushers, and everything is clean, and the oils are cleaner and fresher than they ever were. Using a press, in 99.9% of tasters' opinions, is a disaster. So cold pressed, kind of meaningless.
Really, what we should be putting on the bottles now is
cold extracted.
Cold extracted.
Yeah.
And that would be if it's under 27 degrees.
Exactly.
And so what they do in these labs is they inject it with artificial smells and color, is that right? Or
so years ago in the United States, they had a program in 60 Minutes about olive oil, and the Italian olive oil police, and some of whom I know, who were trained tasters and brilliant tasters, and they were arresting people in Italy who were bringing in oil which was actually not even olive oil. It was hazelnut oil, which had no smell and no taste. And then adding some extra virgin olive oil to give it a little bit of taste, but also adding colour. But this kind of thing is rare. This is not really happening. I mean, in supermarkets, you're not going to find that kind of thing. What you will find in supermarkets are oils that may contain some refined oil, where they have added a certain amount of extra virgin to get the chemistry okay and to make it smell a little bit okay. But they never have the freshness and character that these oils have.
If I were to go to a supermarket and get a big jug of what you tend to find in the supermarket, and I taste it next to one of these bottles right here, what kinds of things am I going to notice right off the bat?
So some of them will smell dead. I don't mean of dead bodies, or some of them could, but I mean there would be no freshness. And as I say, I keep repeating the word freshness, but we need to preserve the freshness. Some of them, on the other hand, will have some unpleasant smells. And the most common unpleasant smell that you get in supermarket olive oil is what we technically call cat pee. When the cat pee is mild, it's not so bad. I mean, if you think about it, Sauvignon Blanc in the wine world is sometimes described as cat pee. Some cat pee we like, if it's subtle. But sometimes it's really funky, and those ones will not be extra virgin because they will have a defect. What you would get, if you compared the two, would be freshness and something either without smell or with fermented, dirty smells.
And then let's say that we cut the supermarket oil out of the equation and we just line up some bottles on the table just like this. How big of a range of flavors and smells are we bound to find?
I mean, today, by chance, we have Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Greece. So it's not so much the country that the oil is made in, it's more about the variety. So for example, one of the great varieties in the world is Picual, and a good Picual is one of the most exciting varieties, I think, that exists. People are making fantastic Picual in other countries, in Australia and in South America.
And since we have some bread and some tomato on the table, is there an oil that you would likely pair with those two things, of the ones that you do have?
Yes, there's an oil here which actually comes from near Valencia, where we live, which I love, with what the Spanish call tostada, or Italians bruschetta. The exciting thing about bruschetta or tostada is it takes you 3 minutes to make. It's incredibly healthy, and it can be some of the most delicious stuff that you can have if the olive oil is good. Unfortunately, me being a taster now, if somebody gives me a tostada in any country and the oil is not good, I will notice, and sometimes I wish I were not an olive oil taster, because I wouldn't have noticed in the past.
Oh no.
But now, with a great oil and just simply bread and tomato, it can be fantastic.
Can we try one of these oils? Perhaps you can give the viewers a sort of refresher on how to taste the oil just
Very
in
much
and
so.
of itself.
Yeah. We're going to try a variety called Morrut, which is a variety from just north of Valencia. It's not the most exciting variety in the world, but it is really good, I think, with bread and tomatoes. So let's just initially give it a sniff. It should give you a sensation of something green. I mean, we often say freshly cut grass. Here, to me, it's almost like we're cutting up a lettuce to make a salad. So what I'm doing is, we gave it an initial smell, but in order to get more smell to come out of the cup, we need to warm it up. The flat of my hand is on top, keeping the smell in. And when I'm ready to go, I give it another sniff, and you get these green notes and possibly some herbs. I can't put my finger on them, but there are some aromatic herbs. So now I'm going to show you the strange noises that I make when I taste. So one is at the front, then the sides, swallow a tiny bit, and then breathe out of your nose. So wait for me to do it. People who haven't would be surprised by the pungency, the pepperiness. It's got some body, but it's not greasy. And it doesn't have a lot of character, but it's got some nice green vegetable and aromatic herb.
Yeah, some of the Picuals that you and I have tried were certainly more bold and flavor forward.
Yeah.
But this is quite pleasant, and I can imagine how on a tostada
when we have it with
would be.
toast.
Oof.
I love Picual on toast, but for some people the Picual can be a little bit bitter. A very important point to make is that if you pour the Picual onto the toast, as soon as you've taken it out of the toaster, the bitterness will be reduced. So when I'm in the kitchen in our cafe making tostada, if I'm going to use a bitter oil, I take the bread out, put it on the plate, and put the bitter oil on immediately, because the heat of the bread reduces the bitterness. So what I want to show you is just how quickly you can make something delicious, healthy, and fantastic. So I've toasted some bread. You want to toast it so that it's hard on the surface. Here goes the salt. Try not to chop my fingers off. Garlic. You don't have to have garlic, but everyone loves garlic. And put the garlic on before the oil. And if the toast is nice and hard, when I do this, I get more garlic. It smells great. Don't drizzle. Pour this lovely morrut. I'm dribbling, try not to dribble, on the bread. And then let's see how quickly I can cut up and grate the tomato. So I do this every morning in our cafe, and I mean, you may think this looks like it's hard work. It isn't. It's really easy, really quick. It smells great. We have some olive oils that smell as good as freshly grated tomato. And so this smell that I can smell now reminds me of one of my favourites. Italian oils. So I have my tomato, beautifully fresh. I mean, how long has this taken? When we finish the video, we're going to look at how long it took us to do it, but I should think less than 3 minutes.
Well under 3, well under 2, and it's ready to go. Let's.
Do you want me to chomp into it?
Yes, please. Verdict?
Fantastic.
Salute.
Salute. If we use some bad oil, now I'm afraid you would notice it because you now learn to tell the difference.
It really is remarkable the difference the oil makes. Can you get away with a worse oil?
I mean, now that I really recognize particularly the cat pee defect, if it's got a strong cat pee defect, that I will notice, unfortunately. And as I say, I wouldn't have done in the past. But I've had some oils that were much worse than that. Mm-hmm. And it just totally wrecks the food.
This is top notch. In under 2 minutes.
And this is not one of the sort of most spectacular oils that we have.
Thank you.
But it's so good in the combination and so satisfying, no?
Highlight of my day so far. You know, all the pleasant conversation aside.
I mean, this is kind of quicker than microwaving something.
Yeah.
Healthier.
Yeah.
And more delicious.
Well, that was incredible.
I'm glad you liked it.
If we can just close with your thoughts on why it matters. Why should we be using olive oil? Some of the health benefits of using olive oil.
To some extent interested in the health, but more than anything else, I'm interested in the fact that when you've got all these different olive oils, it opens up flavors, possibilities in the kitchen that you never had before, without it being complicated. It's not like you have to do complex dishes to appreciate how wonderful these oils are.
They're liquid herbs.
Yeah, exactly. It is literally like having a whole new variety of herbs, but they happen to be liquid. And the other thing is that's amazing about olive oil, when it's of this quality, is that it captures that freshness when you make it into oil, and it keeps that freshness for at least 18 months. If I were to pick some fresh herbs off my balcony out there and put them in the fridge, in a couple of days they're kind of wilted and they've lost their freshness. These guys keep this freshness for that long. It's kind of magical. And as I keep saying, the varieties are so exciting. In terms of health, I went to a conference about olive oil and health organised by Yale and Jaén University here in Spain. And there were all sorts of very interesting papers, but the most interesting one was about experiments that have been done on mice. We are not mice. They haven't done that kind of experiment on people, and they probably would not be able to. But what they proved was that if you give mice a bitter extra virgin olive oil, it improves their memory. And they had obviously a control group when they were doing this experiment. They had mice which had canola, and their memory went downhill. So when they published these results... Compared to the placebo or compared to the olive oil? Compared to the placebo. Sorry, the control group, yeah. And the people who make those oils were not so happy about the results. But it doesn't matter about that. The clear thing is that extra virgin olive oil was helping the memory of these mice. And the guy who was doing the research is interested in Alzheimer's. There's, as it were, no proof yet about Alzheimer's. But being anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and also antibacterial, it is clearly a wonderful substance to take on board. But don't think it is a medicine that is going to save your life or change your life. But it will change the way you cook. And there was a pause before I said cook, because in some ways you don't even need to cook. Sometimes you can have all sorts of raw ingredients with a great olive oil, and it's so quick and so simple and so delicious.
Case in point.
Exactly. I mean, we toasted bread. It is clear that the people in Greece, who are some of the healthiest people in the world, to some extent that is to do with the olive oil. but it seems to be connected to all sorts of other aspects of Mediterranean life. But clearly extra virgin olive oil is the healthiest oil to use, both to cook with and to finish your dishes with. And these ones are oils that we would call finishing oils, ones that will bring so much character and deliciousness to your dish with no effort.
Yeah, we've certainly done that today.
People will think you're a magician just by sprinkling some of this oil on some of your food.
Well, I certainly think you're a magician. As always, if you liked what you saw, give us a follow and stay tuned for more stuff ahead.